And the difference between love and codependency is not whether love exists. The difference is that codependency requires you to abandon yourself. The healthy vibration of love says, I love you and I remain connected to myself. Codependency says, I love you and I will leave myself if that is what it takes to keep you, help you, calm you, or make sure you are okay. Healthy love allows two people to remain both connected to each other and themselves. Codependency asks one person to slowly disappear. And that's why I say codependency is sneaky, because that disappearance may happen so gradually that you do not even recognize that it's happening.
Welcome to Grow with Robin Breckenridge, a podcast about stepping into the most fully expressed, aligned, and conscious version of yourself. Here, we dive into the real work of personal growth, establishing boundaries, understanding your patterns, building self-trust, healing emotional wounds, and creating relationships that feel safe, authentic, and fulfilling. I'm Robin, a life and relationship coach, and in each episode, we'll explore the tools, insights, and conversations that will help you not just improve your life and relationships, but truly transform them. You don't have to just go through it. Let's grow through it, and let's do it together.
Hi, everyone. I'm back from my little trip. And let me tell you, I cannot recommend enough going and doing nothing on a vacation. Like, I went to a town of 600 people. There's nothing to do. My days consisted of, do I want to go out on the water and paddleboard or go for a walk? Never did my hair. I had 2 outfits I called my uniforms. It was glorious. Really glorious. I have lately been doing some adventurous travel. Like, we've been going to Hawaii for Christmas and it's amazing, and also restorative and beautiful, but a trek from Michigan and a big time change. And then, when you have kids and you go on spring break and you do these things, it's like sometimes you need a vacation from the vacation. Well, this was one where it was a vacation, and just makes me so excited to get back to work, get back to this podcast, get back to writing and creating. So just as, someone who's living their own dang life and learning as I go, I highly recommend it. So take it as a sign. Go somewhere, do nothing. I did not even take my animals, so I didn't even have to feed them or let them out. It was lovely. So it is about time on this podcast that we talk about codependency. And codependency is a very, very, very complex topic. I think that most of us think we know what it is. It's kind of hard to simplify. It has a lot of different faces, and it can show up in so many different ways with many different people and across every type of relationship. It can show up with a romantic partner, a parent, a child, a sibling, a friend, a coworker. It can also show up in helping relationships where supporting and caring for people is part of what we do. And because codependency is so layered, I don't want to be one of those people that is like, hey, this is what codependency is. Let's put it in a box. I just think it's one of those things that we think we know a ton about. We're probably just scratching the surface. And I'm going to do my best job to simplify the concept of codependency as best as I can. And there will still probably be some nuance that I miss in this episode. Personally, doing this work for 10 years, I feel that we might all collectively be shifting out of codependent dynamics in our relationships. And that might be a very, very big part of having a healthy, connected relationship with yourself. I think that probably every human being has codependency somewhere in at least one of their relationships, or at least historically. I had a client this week that said laughingly that she was in codependency recovery. And I said, oh yeah, so am I, meaning that I have not made it to the finish line of my codependency recovery. I think I have moments. I think I'm less codependent, and yet it's still something I'm working on because it is so easy for me to leave myself in service of other people or in service of a connection. So I'm going to do my best today and know that this is not going to, in totality, land the entire concept of codependency. And I'm not sure that I've ever met one person who can yet. So because it's so layered, I want to do my best to simplify it today without reducing it to a list of behaviors. Because helping someone or sacrificing, compromising, forgiving, staying, supporting, caring, and showing up does not automatically make you codependent. Two people can do the exact same thing while being driven by a completely different energy. So instead of talking about behaviors, I'm going to talk a little bit about behaviors, but we're also going to talk about the energy that is motivating the behaviors. Because you can help someone because you love them and they asked for your support and you have the capacity to give it, and that helping aligns with your values. And you can also help because you're afraid they will be disappointed in you, or afraid of what will happen if you do not step in, or afraid that allowing them to struggle will be something that you can't manage. You can stay beside someone during a difficult season because there is mutual love, responsibility, and a shared commitment to working through it. And you can also stay because leaving fills you with guilt, because you believe the other person can't survive without you, or because choosing yourself feels like abandoning them. You can compromise because healthy relationships require flexibility. Or you can repeatedly give up what matters to you because you're afraid that having needs will cost you connection, approval, or control. And that's because the behavior alone does not always tell us whether something is codependent. We have to look at the energy driving the behavior. Am I acting from love, choice, capacity, and alignment with my values? Or is the energy underneath my behavior fear? Fear of rejection, abandonment, conflict, disapproval, disappointing someone, losing control, no longer being needed. Fear of what might happen if I stop holding it all together. Fear is at the core of codependency. And what makes the pattern codependent is that fear drives you to abandon yourself. In codependency, you will leave your feelings, your needs, your boundaries, your values, your intuition, your limits, and your capacity. And sometimes you will leave your entire life. Healthy love may ask us to stretch. I say it all the time. Sometimes love is doing the harder thing. It may ask us to compromise. It may involve sacrifice and patience and showing up through a difficult season. Healthy love never requires us to disappear. Codependency does. Now, there are two simplified definitions of codependency that have helped me understand the heart of the pattern. The first definition is if you're okay, I'm okay. The second is that codependency is chronic self-neglect. Both definitions describe what happens when we stop standing in our own lives and in our own power and begin organizing ourselves around someone else. Now, here's where it gets really confusing. Codependency can feel so much like love, and often it is. There is love present in the relationship or the dynamic that you're in. It can also feel like loyalty, commitment, devotion, showing up. refusing to give up on someone, standing beside them during their hardest moments, holding space for their pain when other people don't, seeing their potential when they can't see it in themselves. It can look like being the person who stays, the one that they can always count on. And that love, it's real. The loyalty is real. The desire to help and the commitment may be real. And this is the part that makes codependency so complex. It doesn't always feel unhealthy, and the motivator doesn't always feel that far off from our values, or maybe even our authentic yes. Your values might lead you back to, but I am a loyal person. I don't abandon people. I love deeply and show up 100%. I believe that relationships take work, and I'm willing to show up to that work. I see the good in people. I don't give up on someone just because they're struggling. And those are beautiful qualities. And I never want anyone to diminish the generosity that is in their heart, that is a natural state of their being. There is nothing wrong with loving deeply, with being loyal. There is nothing wrong with standing beside someone during a hard time. And the difference between love and codependency is not whether love exists. The difference is that codependency requires you to abandon yourself. The healthy vibration of love says, I love you and I remain connected to myself. Codependency says, I love you and I will leave myself if that is what it takes to keep you, help you, calm you, or make sure you are okay. Healthy love allows two people to remain both connected to each other and themselves. Codependency asks one person to slowly disappear. And that's why I say codependency is sneaky, because that disappearance may happen so gradually that you do not even recognize that it's happening. Maybe you slowly stop expressing what you really feel and what you need. You become afraid to say no. You organize your choices around someone else's possible reaction. You ignore or override your exhaustion. You make the other person's needs urgent and your needs optional. You spend more time trying to figure them out or understand them than even connecting or listening to yourself. You become overwhelmed and focused on their pain, their healing, their choices, their potential, and their happiness. Meanwhile, you're getting smaller. Your needs are delayed. Your dreams are placed on hold. Your body and your capacity is ignored. Your limits are crossed. And your voice becomes quieter. That is self-abandonment. And no matter how much love is present, when maintaining a relationship repeatedly requires you to abandon yourself, you are no longer experiencing healthy love. In fact, I just had someone on TikTok reach out to a post I made about boundaries. And she said, I put boundaries in place in my situationship and it ended it. And my response back was, congratulations, because a relationship that crumbles because you have a limit or you honor yourself was built on you abandoning yourself. So is there anyone who has ever been in a situationship, which there's a even better term I heard called a shituationship? Has anyone ever woken up in the morning and gone, gosh, I hope this situationship never changes and this person continues to reap the benefits of being in close proximity to me and having access to me? I hope it never changes. I hope it stays right where it is. No, there's one person in a situationship that wants more because that's true for them. So I came across something called the pillow analogy, and I heard it from a client of mine that had attended On-Site, which is a workshop facility in Nashville. And she came to me and said, have you ever heard about the pillow analogy? And I'm like, no, what is it? So I'm going to explain what the pillow analogy is. And I think it's just such a beautiful visual representation of what a codependent relationship looks like and how we stay connected to ourselves and another person in relationships. So the pillow analogy is that you envision 3 pillows on the floor. The first pillow is your pillow. The middle pillow is the relationship pillow, and the other pillow would be the other person's pillow. So this would be a relationship between 2 people. In a healthy relationship, everybody keeps 1 foot on their pillow, 1 foot on the relationship pillow. Both people do that. What that means is that everybody is both connected to themselves and connected to the relationship. Now, in codependent relationships, what ends up happening is that something will happen in the relationship, or we will feel uncomfortable and we will leave our pillow. And sometimes we will go onto the middle pillow, which is the relationship pillow, and we will try to control the relationship. And then sometimes we will leave the relationship pillow and go onto the other person's pillow and control the person or the person's behavior. And if you can envision this in your mind, if you are on someone else's pillow, you are that much farther away from your own pillow, which would indicate that we have left our pillow. In other words, we have left ourself. Now, that middle pillow that represents the relationship, that's the space you create together. Connection happens there. Communication, affection, conflict, repair. Shared experiences happen on the relationship pillow. So healthy love means remaining connected to your own pillow while meeting the other person on the middle pillow. So that means I remain responsible for my life and you remain responsible for yours. And we both take responsibility for what we've created together. I care about your feelings without making myself responsible for changing them. And you can care about my feelings without taking control of my life. I can communicate what I need, and you can communicate what you need. And we can then determine what is possible between us. But codependency begins when I step off my pillow and onto yours. I leave my own feelings, needs, values, limits, and responsibilities behind. I become focused on managing your pillow. What are you feeling? What do you need? How do I make you feel better? How do I make you more of what I want? How do I make sure you're not disappointed in me? How do I control your behavior? How do I stop you from making a mistake? How do I protect you from the consequences of your choices? And how do I convince you to change? And of course, in that visual, while I'm standing on your pillow, mine is empty. There's no one there to listen to my feelings, advocate for my needs, honor my capacity, protect my limits. No one is making choices for my life. I have left myself and my life unattended. And that is self-abandonment. It does not mean I stopped loving you. It means loving you became tangled with leaving me. Healthy love says, I will remain on my pillow and I will meet you in the middle. Codependency says, I will leave my pillow so I can take responsibility for what belongs to you. So this pillow analogy gives us 3 questions that can simplify a lot of relational confusion. What is mine? What is theirs? And what belongs to the relationship? My feelings are mine. Their feelings are theirs. How we communicate about those feelings belongs to the relationship. My needs are mine. Their needs are theirs. How we negotiate those needs belongs to the relationship. My boundary is mine. Their response to my boundary belongs to them. And whether the relationship can continue in a healthy way with that boundary belongs in the middle. My healing belongs to me. Their healing belongs to them. The relationship we are capable of creating together belongs to both of us. My choices belong to me. Their choices belong to them. The impact those choices have on the relationship belongs in the middle. Love happens in the middle. Codependency happens when fear convinces us to leave our own pillow. So let's go back to that first definition. If you're okay, I'm okay. If you are happy with me, I can relax. If you're disappointed in me, I become anxious. If you are upset, I feel responsible. If you are distant, I become consumed with figuring out what happened. If you are struggling, I have difficulty allowing myself to enjoy my own life. If you disagree with a choice I made, I immediately begin to question myself. If you are in a bad mood, I begin scanning for something I can do to make it better. If you do not respond to my message, I replay our last conversation. Does anyone else want to get a barf bucket out for this session, or am I the only one? If your tone changes, I wonder what I did wrong. If you make a choice I believe will hurt you, I feel an urgency and responsibility to stop you. If you are uncomfortable, I feel pressure to remove your discomfort. My emotional state becomes dependent on your emotional state. My nervous system is watching you. My attention and focus is organized around you. My sense of safety depends on what is happening inside of you. I may even know what you feel before I know what I feel. I actually might be really good at attuning to what you need while I have no idea what I need. This is one of the clearest ways self-abandonment happens. My attention leaves my pillow and goes to yours. And instead of asking, but what am I feeling? I ask, what are they feeling? Or maybe instead of thinking about what choice aligns with my values, I ask, what choice will keep them happy? Or instead of asking, what is my capacity here? I ask, what will happen if I say no? And maybe instead of asking, does this relationship work for me? I ask, how do I keep this relationship from ending? My okayness becomes attached to someone else's okayness. And because I cannot control whether another person is okay, I live with ongoing anxiety. There is always another mood to monitor, a reaction to anticipate, a problem to solve, a conversation to replay, another outcome to try to control, another person to try to make okay. Now keep in mind, you are now an adult who is doing something, who is engaging in a behavior that is impacting yourself in a way that is not purpose-driven. But these patterns don't come from nowhere. Many people with codependent patterns are highly perceptive and highly empathic. We notice the facial expressions, the changes in tone, the pauses, the very subtle shifts in someone's energy. And that awareness did not develop for no reason. At some point in your life, there is a high likelihood that noticing other people's emotional states may have helped you feel safer and survive the environment you are in. Maybe you needed to know what mood a parent was in before approaching them. Or someone's emotions controlled the atmosphere of your entire household. Maybe conflict felt unpredictable. And maybe you disappointing someone led to anger, criticism, withdrawal, or punishment. You may have received more love, approval, or attention when you were helpful, responsible, agreeable, or easy. And perhaps there was little room for your feelings because another person's needs took up all the space. Maybe being the peacekeeper helped maintain connection and stability in your family. And maybe you were really good at being helpful and it made you feel valued. And maybe you were praised for being mature when you were actually carrying responsibilities that never belonged to a child. So your system got really good at looking outward, monitoring, anticipating, adjusting, and preventing. You adapted very quickly to become what the environment needed you to be. And that is one of the greatest costs of relational trauma growing up, is that a fork in the road happens. We either maintain the connection with our caregivers, which we need to survive, or we remain connected to ourself and our authenticity. So adapting to the environment was a very intelligent adaptation, because a kid can't simply decide, you know what, this family dynamic is unhealthy and dysfunctional, and I'm going to leave. We have to adapt. We have to adapt to our environment. So one child becomes quiet, another helpful. Maybe someone becomes the successful one, the funny one, the emotionally invisible one. Maybe you come out of that childhood responsible for everyone. Maybe you adopt the role of being an emotional support to the adults in your environment. And they absolutely did help you preserve the connection during childhood. But as they follow us into adulthood, that's where they become maladaptive. Because the child who learned to keep everyone calm may become the adult who cannot relax unless everyone is happy. The child who learned to avoid conflict may become the adult who cannot tolerate another person's disappointment. The child who earned connection through usefulness becomes the adult who confuses being needed with being loved. The child who managed a parent's emotions may become the adult who feels responsible for the feelings of everyone around them. And that younger part of us still believes, I have to keep people happy to stay connected. I have to be useful to have value. I cannot have needs because that creates an inconvenience. I cannot tolerate someone being disappointed in me. I can't let someone I love struggle. And ultimately, I can't say no. Even though these behaviors and patterns remain active, it becomes different in our adult life. Because if somebody becomes disappointed in you, it doesn't feel like ordinary disappointment. Remember, disappointment is in the family of grief and a normal thing to occur somewhat frequently in our relationships, or for sure in our life. But instead of it feeling like this thing that comes up in our relationships and we can manage, it feels like danger. And when we leave our pillow, if someone's upset, it doesn't just feel like that's their business and their pillow. It feels like it's our responsibility. If someone pulls away, we don't simply notice the difference. We feel compelled to restore the connection immediately. Maybe someone else has a problem and we don't pause to check our capacity or what's an authentic yes. We leap off of our pillow and rush to theirs. So it all leads me back to the second definition, that codependency is chronic self-neglect. I love this definition because it brings the attention back to your relationship with yourself. I see it all the time in this work, and I am 100% guilty of doing this throughout my life. Codependency becomes entirely focused on the other person. Why are they acting this way? Why do they not like me? Why was I not good enough for them? Why will they not change? And those questions matter. It's always good to get curious about other people's behavior from a data perspective. But eventually we want to come back to our own pillow. What is happening to me in this relationship? What am I repeatedly ignoring, overriding, tolerating? What am I agreeing to that I don't actually want? What is my body and my nervous system continuing to communicate that I'm dismissing? Where have I made someone else's discomfort more important than my own well-being? And it brings me back to what I think is our greatest responsibility in this life, which is to keep ourselves emotionally safe. Because if we don't have our emotional well-being, we don't have much. Another great question is, where am I working harder on another person's life, challenge, situation than they are? Chronic self-neglect and abandonment can look like agreeing to something when your entire body and nervous system is saying no. It can look like staying quiet because you're afraid of upsetting someone. Or repeatedly giving more money, more time, more emotional energy than you have the capacity to give. It can look like protecting someone from the consequences of their actions. I think using God or the universe as the ultimate model of what unconditional love looks like and what teaching looks like. The universe teaches through consequence, and not all consequences are bad, but specifically consequences that are more negative or uncomfortable tend to be the greatest learning experiences we have. I believe that the universe uses discomfort as a means to wake us up. I have learned in my own codependency journey that me standing in the way or standing in the middle of someone and the universe's natural consequence for their action is not doing a service to anybody. Because I will tell you that getting cosmically bitch slapped by the universe is a gift. I know it's hard to watch. I know it is so hard to watch when it's someone that you love and care about, especially your children. But we're not supposed to teach everybody everything. There are things that are outside of our realm of control. In this work, I've been trained very specifically to know when someone needs a higher level of care than I have to offer. There are so many times where someone needs a higher level of care or support than we have to offer. And that is when I default and hand them or surrender them back over to the universe. The universe will teach them. So when we protect people from the natural consequence of their actions, we are standing between them and God and the lesson that God is trying to impart to them on their soul's journey. Chronic self-neglect and self-abandonment can also look like placing your needs at the bottom of your list every day, answering calls when you're depleted, canceling your plans whenever another person has a problem or a need, feeling guilty when you rest, feeling selfish when you have a limit. It can look like knowing something feels wrong and continually talking yourself out of what you know. P.S. That's called gaslighting. And I know we love that term gaslighting, but guess how often we gaslight ourselves. It can look like being deeply compassionate towards everyone else while being impatient and critical with yourself. Let me tell you, this one lands for anybody, and I will assume it's a lot of listeners to this podcast who have read the books, gone to therapy, done all the things, understand inner child work. It can look like understanding every reason why someone behaves the way they do based off their trauma and their childhood while ignoring the impact their behavior has on you and your well-being. And that is why I say our boundaries have to be greater than our empathy. You may know their childhood story, their patterns, their fears, their stress. They might be going through a hard time. And understanding someone creates compassion. I would never, ever encourage a single human being on the planet to be less compassionate But being understanding and compassionate does not make harmful behavior less harmful. And understanding someone's struggle or the origin of it doesn't make you responsible for fixing it. I gave a client a piece of advice one time, and this particular client, she brings it up every time I talk to her. I apparently told her, don't give advice unless you're being asked for it or getting paid for it. I am a pretty big stickler that if you're a friend of mine in my personal life, I will often ask, would you like some advice? And my friends will go, yeah, that's why I'm calling you. I still ask for permission because it's not my job. Now, when you guys are paying me and coming here, and some of my clients that are listening know I might even ask you anyways, but it's not my job to fix or save anybody. It's why I've repeatedly said on this podcast, my next tattoo could be support, don't fix or save. Support means I got one foot on my pillow, you got one foot on your pillow. You are also working on fixing and saving yourself. Happy to support you in that. Fixing and saving means you might not be working as hard as me, and I have now left myself in order to fix and save you. And what I've learned as someone who gets paid to fix and save people, I have never once fixed or saved anyone but myself. So I support the people that come in here to fix and save themselves. Which is why one of the things I vet out when I work with people is, are you actually seeking change? Because I can't do it for you. And are you willing to access the level of courage that it takes to do things different in your life? So let's talk about the core of codependency. It isn't just about your behavior. It's about fear. Fear is the energy that drives us off our pillow. Fear of rejection, abandonment, conflict, disapproval, being misunderstood. The fear of anger, being alone, no longer being needed, losing control, or let me say, losing the illusion of control. The fear of what will happen if you stop holding everything together. The fear that saying no or setting a boundary will make someone leave. The fear that you may not be able to manage and tolerate watching someone you love struggle. The fear that having needs will make you difficult, that being honest will cost you connection. Now, to be honest, it might. But it's definitely not going to cost you aligned connections. The fear of hurting someone or disappointing someone if you choose yourself. But I wonder what happens. Let's get curious. That's a huge part of this work. What happens if you stop initiating every conversation? If you stop repairing every conflict, stop making excuses, solving every problem, being endlessly flexible, accepting less than you need? And what happens if you return to your own pillow? Some people in your life might become uncomfortable. They might dislike that you're changing. They might deem you as selfish and withdraw. They might try to make you feel guilty or bring pressure in as a means to motivate you back into what they want. And just like that example from that lovely follower on TikTok, the relationship or situationship, it might end. And that fear is enough to trap us in self-abandonment. And this is where feelings aren't facts, but they're good information, right? When you're managing a relationship, it might feel like you have control. When you're rescuing someone, you might feel like you are preventing the outcome from happening. But my guess is if we truly made this an experiment and wrote down all the data, I highly doubt it works. Definitely not long term. Pouring out someone's alcohol might prohibit them from drinking that night? Is it going to stop them from engaging in their addiction? I doubt it. But there are these delusions, or what I love that word, delulu. The delulus of, if I keep everyone happy, I'll be safe. If I'm useful enough, I'll be loved. If I'm indispensable, they won't leave. If I just keep explaining myself and I find the perfect way to do it, they'll understand. Maybe if I pour so much into them and I support them so much, maybe they'll eventually support me. Maybe if I wait long enough and I'm patient, the relationship will become what I need. Maybe if I heal them and change them, they'll stop hurting me. Maybe if I make them love me and see my worth, then this thing that plagues me inside will go away. But here's why it doesn't work. Codependency becomes an attempt to create internal safety by managing something outside of us. Another person's emotions, choices, perception, behavior. Now, here's where it gets a little bit tough. There is a definition of hypervigilance that means that hypervigilance is altering your behavior to control an outcome. Now, I hope everybody's sitting down. Here's the yucky part of that definition. That's the same definition as manipulation. Ooh, yikes. I know. Manipulation, nobody likes that. I don't like that. I know there was a time in my life when I really thought about that definition and I thought about how many people had been manipulative towards me and I went, do I do that? And truly could have barfed in that moment. I could not believe that I was doing it everywhere. And what that means is not that I was intentionally trying to manipulate people. It meant that control became a way that I regulated fear. And because it is impossible, I tell my clients all the time, listen, if I could get this dude or this girl or this person to just be this blank, you would be paying me $1 million and I'd be calling you from a yacht in the south of France. Because I would have no problem charging that amount because I was doing something that's impossible. I can't because it's not possible. We cannot truly control another person. We cannot truly control the outcome of anything. And the anxiety never completely resolves. Now, for most of us that have been overgivers, overfunctioners, we associate codependency with being passive, accommodating, or self-sacrificing. But what's probably true is codependency is actually controlling. It may look like repeatedly giving someone advice they did not ask for, reminding them over and over again, monitoring their behavior, researching the solution to their problems more than they do, trying to prevent them from having bad consequences, convincing them to go to therapy, trying to get them to leave that toxic relationship, to stop an unhealthy habit. The intention may have love in it. You may genuinely see something they cannot see. You might be right. You might have good ideas. But the pillow analogy brings up the question, does this belong to you? You can share a concern. You can communicate how someone's choices affect you. You can set a boundary or a limit. You can decide what you will participate in. You can determine what access someone has to your time, money, energy, and your life. You can. I know it's hard, and I know that it's complex for a lot of people, but you can leave a relationship that's hurting you. But you can't live another person's life. You can't create motivation for them, force insight. You can't do their healing for them. You can't get them to choose differently. And sometimes our efforts help us to understand a painful reality that the person may not want to change. They may want to continue making the same choices. They may not be willing or able to give us what we need. That the relationship may never become what we hoped it would become. And that is why when I teach boundaries, I always teach that boundary work is grief work. Grief means letting go of something that was important to me. Returning and putting one foot back on our pillow allows us to make decisions based on who they actually are and what is actually happening. This is why I'm such a big fan of collecting data. Because once we have data, we can use something called discernment. Discernment means good judgment. We don't have to stay in a false reality that contradicts the data we have on that person. Loyalty is a beautiful value. Showing up is a beautiful quality, and commitment and follow through and your words and actions aligning matter. Relationships require patience, forgiveness, grace, and the willingness to work through things that are hard and uncomfortable. Healthy relationships are not a perfect balance of 50-50. There will be times where one person carries more. There are seasons when love asks us to give more than we receive. That is not automatically codependency. That would be the difference between love asking you to do the harder thing and abandoning ourselves. That would be the difference between patience and tolerance. Listen, I got no problem being patient for people I love as long as there is evidence that they're willing to work on it too. Tolerance means you're the one doing all the work, and it's probably not getting you anywhere. And a good question to ask is, does the responsibility rebalance over time? Because of course things happen situationally. Maybe someone's experiencing a loss, or they're doing a big piece of work on themselves. Maybe they've suffered some sort of challenge that is going on in their life currently. But does the responsibility rebalance over time? Can you have limits and still be loved? Can the other person show up for you? Healthy love does not require the chronic disappearance of your identity, your needs, your voice, and your well-being. So we have these beautiful alarm systems in our body because some of us have been doing this our entire life and we don't even hear the alarms going off. This is just what we did to survive. This is what led us in our relationships. But resentment is often one of the clearest signs that we have abandoned ourselves. Resentment can be an invitation to become more honest with yourself. What did I actually want here? What was I hoping would happen? What did I agree to? What did I communicate? And where can I have a boundary or a limit now? Resentment can point us back towards our own pillow. Now, this all ties in to self-trust. Every time your body says no and you say yes, you teach yourself that your discomfort will be ignored. Each time your intuition tells you something is wrong and you explain it away, you teach yourself that your knowing is unreliable and untrustworthy. Every time you override a boundary to control another person's reaction, you teach yourself that you will not protect your own limits. And then over time, we begin looking to other people to tell us who we are and what we're allowed to feel. Am I overreacting? Is this okay to be upset about? Am I being selfish? Am I allowed to say no? Are my needs reasonable? Now listen, we all need support and outside perspective sometimes, But that support and outside perspective is supposed to lead us back to an internal truth. It means that another person's opinion does not automatically become more important than your lived experience. Self-trust does not mean reacting to every feeling or believing every fear-based thought. It means listening to yourself. It means taking your internal experience seriously, pausing before you override what you know, and remaining on your pillow. You can care about someone without abandoning yourself. In fact, it's a much more beautiful, authentic way of caring for the people around you. Now, how do we get back to our own pillow? Boundaries. Boundaries are an essential part of shifting our codependent patterns. A boundary is not an attempt to control someone else's pillow. It clarifies what you will do on yours. And that is why sometimes people get boundaries and control very, very, very confused. Boundaries are not about controlling someone else. They are about adjusting your behavior, your reaction, and the access you give to other people. Okay, so here's your invitation for this week. When you feel anxious, resentful, overly responsible, compelled to fix someone, or consumed with another person's emotion, I want you to picture the 3 pillows. Ask yourself, which pillow am I standing on right now? Am I connected to my feelings, needs, values, capacity, and choices? Am I standing on someone else's pillow, trying to manage their feelings, choices, healing, or consequence? Or do I have one foot on the middle pillow, which allows me to communicate honestly about what I need or what I'm experiencing in the relationship, while having one foot on my pillow and staying connected to myself? Ask yourself, what is yours? What is theirs? And what belongs on the relationship pillow? I'll give you a hint. The conversation, the agreement, the repair, the expectations, the decisions about whether both people want and are able to create the same kind of aligned relationship. Now, I'm not going to airy-fairy this. Fear still might be present. Guilt might be present. Someone might end up disappointed. Returning to yourself does not mean all discomfort disappears. It means that discomfort no longer remains more powerful than you are. So remember, codependency is complex, but the central distinction is simple. Healthy love does not require self-abandonment. Codependency does. Let's start by, instead of trying to convince other people that your feelings matter, your needs, your limits, your intuition, your values, let's start believing that for yourself. That's a beautiful place to start. Your feelings need to matter to you. Your needs need to matter to you. Your limits, your intuition, and your values need to start mattering to you. Please continue to be loving, loyal, continue to show up, continue to care with your whole heart. Just stay connected to yourself while you do it. Thank you for being here today. This episode was as much for me as it is for everyone listening. We're all in this together. I'm going to do a few more episodes around this topic, so stay tuned, and I'll see you next time.
That's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for being here and for doing this work. If this episode resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Come connect with me over on TikTok at Robin Breckenridge or Instagram at Coach with Robin, where I share even more insights, tools, and conversations around boundaries, self-trust, relational healing, and so much more. And just a quick reminder, this podcast is for educational and personal growth purposes only. The insights and tools I share are based on my experience as a life and relationship coach and are meant for general guidance. Each person's story is unique, and the nuances of individual experiences can't always be addressed in this format. What's shared here may not be applicable to every situation. especially those involving abuse, oppression, severe mental illness, or systematic harm. If you or someone you know is in crisis, please seek support from a qualified mental health professional or emergency resources. Thank you for listening and for showing up for yourself in this way. Take care, and I'll see you next time.